Babe, last week we had an awesome opportunity to interview a young man that had a lot of great things to say. And he actually shared a lot of great wisdom for someone his age, especially when you're single and you're saved, as we titled this show.
And satisfied.
And so Renee and I had actually a great idea. It would be awesome if we could talk to some of the influencers that he mentioned.
His decision board that he mentioned in his episode.
And we actually have that opportunity to talk to those great influencers. The young man we're talking about is Geoffrey Dudley. If you heard his episode last week, it was very, very timely for what we're going through right now with the singleness and things that people are going through. But now we
provided a lot of hope too.
A lot of hope, always. And so now we actually have the opportunity to talk to his awesome parents. We're talking about Bishop Geoffrey Dudley Sr. and First Lady, as she likes to be called, Lady D.
Lady D.
We're going to be talking to them on this episode of the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil
and Renee.
Stand tuned.
Well, we are so excited to have you guys here, Bishop Dudley and Lady D. Please welcome everybody. Tell everybody a little bit about your amazing love story.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We're certainly honored to have us. I don't know how awesome we
According to Jeff, you would be surprised. Bishop, one of the things that Jeff mentioned on his show was it was amazing that he talked about some of his influence. And you were at the top of his list, which was awesome to hear from a young man. Sometimes parents, we don't get to hear those things all the time.
So you have it recorded. You have evidence.
I paid him well. He eats here free. That's how that works.
Well, tell us a little bit about your love story and how you all met and how you created this beautiful family legacy.
Well, it was an amazing story. Bishop and I met at church. His father was my pastor, and we had gone to the same church for years. 15, 16 years old. One Sunday night after church, the man follows to the car, and he started giving me his line, like, where you been all my life or something.
Oh, he had game already, huh?
Yeah, he threw game at me already and everything. And, and I wasn't interested. And I am going to tell you the real story.
Okay. This is going to be good.
So I did not care for him. I did not like him. He pursued me for 5 years or more. We would go to church, and we would leave right after church, and I was trying to get home because I did not want him to see me or to get to me. Well, I would get home, and before I could get home good, here he is, pulling up in the driveway.
He was stalking you.
He was stalking me. He was stalking me. And the bad part about this, and I got to tell you the truth, I would go and hide.
Uh-oh. Bishop, did you know all this was going on when this was happening?
That she was chasing after me?
Okay, see, we'll give you your chance to revision this history, right?
Tell the truth.
Yeah, I often say to her, the fact that she didn't like me was concern.
It was just a challenge, huh?
Yeah. What did that have to do? She didn't like me. I didn't have to. What did that have to matter with her?
Right.
That's completely irrelevant. So that's kind of how my view was. I knew that, so I dated the pastor's son. And so I leveraged that. And
okay.
As I know in a very traditional church setting, pastor's child.
No matter how bad they are.
I wasn't bad, but I just knew that her mother she was going to respond. I mean, I knew all of this. So the fact that she didn't really care for me.
So, Lady D, what didn't you like?
I don't know. He just had this air about him where I thought that he thought that he was all that, one of these cool brothers that you can't touch.
And how old was he?
Well, when he first approached me, he was like 16, 17, 16 years old. Yeah.
Because Bishop, you started ministering when you were 13, wasn't it? When you were early in your teens? Yeah, right.
I was 13 when I preached my initial sermon. So I had been preaching 3 years, and I knew that her mother would know that I was a good child.
Okay.
And so, therefore, I was forced, handcuffed.
Prearranged.
One of these prearranged relationships to date this man that I didn't care for. And this went on. He pursued. My husband is one of these people, and we'll be married 38 years next month.
Oh,
wow,
beautiful.
Congratulations.
He's one of these people that when he wants something, he's going to go after it. You heard what he said. It didn't matter to him.
Yeah.
That I didn't like him. So he pursued, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was a very low-key young lady. I didn't club. I didn't party. I was not one of those type of people. I was pretty much kind of a homebody, and he shared with me later that he knew the life that the path that he was be taking as a minister, a pastor, and everything, and he knew the type of woman that he wanted. So all of the other women that he may have dated, they were just pastime, and he had a specific type of mind that he wanted, and so he went after me. And to kind of sum all of this up, so this went on for a while, and finally, I was in college. I sent her, and I told him, friend,
She started begging.
I did.
She started begging. Here it is.
Here's the abbreviated version, right? This is the correct version, right, Bishop?
Yeah, the deal is that she thought I was thinking all of that of myself. I never thought those things. It may have appeared to be that, but I never thought all of that. So I think her putting that off delayed her from really seeing.
Right. So now I actually have a two-part question for you, Bishop, on that. How long did you date before you knew that Lady D was the one for you? And before you knew she was the one, what made you have that sole focus and attention on her?
Well, and we are, being candid, as, I think beneficial to the hearers. I was dating. She wasn't my high school. I had a high school sweetheart, someone that I was dating, but I would also want to talk to her. And I remember one time that I had, I'd gone to church, coming up in the South from North Carolina, your two Sunday churches, one Sunday church. My dad's church there, where she went, was a two Sunday church. And so I would always go on second and fourth. And I remember going, and I asked her for a picture. She gave me her picture. This is old school. We were only, First Lady and I, about 100 years old. So so we're way back in the day where you exchange pictures. She gave me her picture. And I remember so well, I had her picture, and I took her picture to my French class in high school. And guy that was sitting next to me, he and I was flunk at the same time. And so we weren't paying attention. And I showed him her picture. Even though, and here's the point, even though I was dating a young lady all through high school, I told him, I said, this is who I am.
Wow.
Because she's pretty. She's pretty now. And she's just pretty. That was the thing. Very pretty and in church. But she did circle back after all of that pursuing that. If you can envision a rural situation where the rural church is, in a small town, like her house, and she wouldn't come out. Her mother wouldn't make her come out. So, yes, I did know that she did not want to be bothered with me. Her mother would make her come out. I'd call her on the phone. She wouldn't answer. She'd put the phone down, wouldn't say anything. I'd be talking. She wouldn't tell me. So, What can I say?
When I listen to the conversation, I'm sure that everyone's imagination is going. But, the thing that I hear, Lady D, you saying is that you were not attracted to him.
Right.
And the things so you knew the girl he was dating, correct?
No, to be honest with you, I didn't know the whole lot about him. And we got married and we still didn't know anything about each other. I mean, we knew very little about each other. So it's a miracle that we are still together almost 38 years, because we were one of those couples that got married and knew very little about each other.
We didn't know a lot about each other, emotionally nor physically.
Wow. And, one of the things that we always talk about, even on the show, is a lot of times, even if you're like in your situation, you may not know or didn't know a lot about each other, but was it the character and the likeness or the similarities that has attracted you to her that you knew, like I heard Lady D say, or you said, this is who I'm going to marry. Was it the character or just the looks that really made you think about this is the one?
Well, it was the looks. And I knew I wanted a church girl. I knew that I wanted someone that, how can I say this nicely, that had not been around.
Right.
I knew those things, so those things attracted me. The other things that attracted me to her was the fact that she didn't go to college. I went to college, undergrad at University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And by the time she circled around to realize, hey, this guy does have it going on, I was in a wilderness spiritual time. And even though I was a preacher, my college experience was very much flip of that of what we say of young lady. Grew up Pentecostal, grew up very much don't do this, don't do that. And so when I went to college, I kind of wilded out. And so by the time she circled around, I was more certain that I wanted her because of all of my escapades in school. And I knew I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was wonderful. It was nice, but that's not who I was going to be marrying. Because I knew what God had called me to. Even though you're in the wilderness, you do have a sense of, this ain't where I'm going to be.
Right.
And so what attracted me to her was that I knew where I wanted to do. And then secondly, my mother was we talk about prearranged or marriage. Mm-hmm. I talked to my mother. My mother had a great influence in and my dad. And so I would talk to my mother. My mother knew the young lady that I talked to in high school. She knew Glenda, and she knew all of that. And so I asked her. She influenced me greatly. So that had a lot to do with it. She said, I remember well one time I asked her, who should it be? Now, it wasn't her and someone. It was her and someone else. And she said, I'll never forget the conversation. She said, you should want to marry Glenda, Lady D. That's who you should marry. She said, because you will have the chance, and I hope our listeners don't take offense to this language that this elderly woman used, but we used this language back then.
Right.
She said, you will have the chance to train her.
And Bishop, and one of the things that I listened to is it sounds like you both had a strong family background and a family support system. And that, which you just communicated, alluded to that about your mom playing a real big role. A good question that I wanted to ask is, what impact do you think folks have as far as from a family perspective when it comes to their children and navigating life and relationships, kind of like what you just experienced or just articulated, to the point that it actually leads to marriage? What kind of impact do you think that plays on the dating relationship?
I think it has a tremendous impact. In fact, we were just jokingly talking to Jeff earlier this week about the fact that He's not deeply emotionally involved with someone right now. And I kidded with him. I said, what we need to do is have a prearranged marriage for you.
Yeah, we believe in that too. I think, and you're jokingly, but seriously at the same time, because I think a part of it is that when your emotions and your hormones and the culture get involved, like you could narrow it down to two people. Our children have 500 friends on social media. So it would be a lot harder for us to help them narrow it down or even look at someone that they could help. Like when you said the word train, I thought of the word someone you can grow with, you can learn with. Mm-hmm. So whereas for my age, I don't hear that in a negative light, but what your mother was saying was you need someone that you can grow together with. Not so much that you were training her like a pet, but that someone you could share your life with. And so what would be one of the things that if you could share with a parent in this society of all the social media and all the outside influences, what would be one area where you would speak to your child about the marriage, dating relationship?
I would say the same thing. And thank you for updating the language of my.
It's okay. It's my specialty.
And we all had those experiences. And I knew at that point, like I said, First Lady now 100 years old. So, no,
you young, Lady D.
Yeah, she's a year younger than me. So she's 100 and I'm 101. But the thing is this, I realized I heard her through the language that you just heard.
Yes.
I did not hear a sexist, male-dominating.
Exactly.
I didn't hear a Miss Seeley, Oprah,
Yes. Exactly.
I did not hear that at all. What I heard, the very thing that you said, you all can grow together.
Yes.
And so to answer your question, I would say today, still be that filter. My mother was a filter, and she knew her son. He had a close enough relationship. She could filter, help me filter. I think to parents today, to inject yourself where my mother was, she didn't have to inject herself because I was close to her and I respected her and all. But I would say to parents, be intentional. I finished a book and it's yet to be published about family and 5 components of a covenant family. One of them is you have to be intentional. Mm-hmm. And I would say to parents, you have to inject yourself and be intentional about helping them filter the 500 followers and the people that give them the likes.
Yeah. Well, I want to circle back to Lady D because I want she and I to address this because I would probably have fit the same criteria or the same mindset of like I was a homebody, I wasn't popular, I wasn't even cute. To these young women who think that what makes them attracted to a man is them chasing the man or them giving away something they can't get back. What was able to keep you, Lady D? What kept you from being just being you? What kept you from not being you and being like everybody around you?
I was a very particular person. I only had one real relationship before I married a bishop. I only had one. And I always felt like I went to church. A lot of times it was just me and my mother. There was something that was drawing me to church, and I wanted to keep myself pure and just live and enjoy growing up and wait until I was married to give myself to a man. I just felt like I had something to offer, but I wanted to save it for the right man.
That's an amazing mindset to have, even back then compared to the way it is today, Lady D. And we commend you both, and your son represented himself well and your family. And one of the things that he talked about was visions and goals. When you guys were still new in your relationship and in your marriage, were there some visions and goals that you and Bishop kind of identified or talked about or had in mind when you wanted to establish your own family? When you wanted to talk about, if you had decided to have kids, obviously you did, you have Mahogany and Geoffrey. So what were some of the visions and goals that you both had in mind for your own families?
The goals that I had, I remember when Glenda had come around to really getting, saying, okay, advancing to my pursuit. I was in school. Like I said, she had written me this begging letter. Wanted a relationship now. And so it was an answer to prayer. And so I remember talking to her and sitting out in my parents' yard on a swing. And I explained to her what I wanted to do. I was a young person about to go into the military. I said I was going to go into the military. I said I was going to be an officer. I was going to be a chaplain. I was going to do this, this, and this. I was going to go to school, so on and so forth. And I laid it all out. Do you remember that? Yeah, I laid it all out. And just, these are the things that I want to do. And so, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to accomplish. In a couple of years, I actually wrote out the house that I was going to build for her. We weren't married 5 years, and I carried that with me for the balance of my military career. So I've always been that person that would articulate where I wanted to go.
Lady D, I want to ask you a question. What was the event, or what was the shift in your heart that made you realize that Bishop was the one?
Well, we didn't get to that, but I'll be glad to share that with you.
See, she remembered it. She was bringing it back.
It just so happened that he came to see me one Sunday night. I remember it. It's so vivid in my mind. I remember it as it was yesterday. He came to see me one night, and we sat and we talked for hours. And it was like, you've seen the on the TV where the little Cupid angel,
it's like
the little Cupid fella come by in with his arrow. And it was like it shot me in my heart.
Oh, he got you.
That very night, it was like, wow, what just happened? I honestly did not want him to leave. It was that very night that it was like something just struck in my heart.
The scales fell off.
I'm trying to be sincere.
But what's beautiful in listening to your story is so different from what people think. People think that in order to have a connection, or in order to accept that someone is the one for you, that something has to be sexual. What you're saying is that your intimacy was through communication, through you talking. And so when you think about this generation of children who are extremely sexually active, I think that your story models that, first of all, the man has to choose you, because Bishop said, I made a decision that I was going to marry her. And then you made a decision in your own heart separately that you didn't want to give yourself to anyone except your husband. And so to those of you who are listening, we're talking to Lady D and Bishop Dudley, and we're talking about their love story. And so young men and young women, please hear the moral to the story. The person that's for you has to choose you, women. He has to choose you. And ladies, you have to be a wife when he finds you. You have to bring something to the table other than giving them something sexual. And even going back to what you said, Bishop, about your mom, you have to be able to grow together. What are some of the areas as a couple where you would say were your biggest growth areas as a couple when you first got married, and your biggest strengths as a couple?
Before I answer that question, I would say also to your listeners, one of the things that helped me to know that she was who I wanted to be, because I knew she was the woman that matched the vision that I had for my life, though I was not necessarily living that way at that time. Was I tried to make a move on her and she resisted me, and I didn't press it much beyond that. And so that, I remember that. It's okay. Because, I was used to getting the cookies.
Uh-huh.
And I think that had an impact on me. Not that I was going to okay, now this is some pursuit to get that. And then after, the dog catches the truck, then you're dead.
Right.
Not that at all. It wasn't that at all. It just registered because deep within me, I know I had the spirit of the living God in me. And I knew that was something that I wanted. But in terms of the question that you asked, ask it one more time.
Basically, what was it that made you know that was the person you wanted to spend? I asked you that. What was the person how did you know that was the person you wanted to spend your life with? And then basically, what were some of your biggest growth areas in the beginning of your marriage? And what were some of your biggest strengths? Something you brought to the table that was your strength and your growth area as couples. And you guys can both answer that question.
For me, I think it was our spirituality and family network. And that was the greatest strength. I think the greatest growth area was that we didn't know each other. And in marriage counseling, as you well know, one of the biggest areas that you deal with is realistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And when realistic expectations are not appropriately set prior to marriage, they can fail the marriage. That and money. And so those were the two things that I think we had to deal with. And initially, we separated. And we share this because we've shared this in limited ways. We separated for a period because of that challenge, not knowing each other. And so that would be what I would say.
Well, for me, it would be one, the finances, the learning part, the thing that we had to struggle through together with our finances. I did not know, Bishop, and I did not know that there was so much debt that was brought into the relationship. So there was a lot of growth in that area, starting out and really having to struggle to pay off all of this debt. And something that you all don't know that I did not share is that because of my really feeling strong about my faith, there was we broke up.
Mm-hmm.
Want to know when we broke up? We broke up the week before we got married.
Wow.
I gave him back his ring in the park because I disagreed with him on some things, and I gave him back his ring. And we went the whole week. This is how I know that this man was supposed to be my husband. We went the whole week and we went through the whole process of getting married when we were still broke up. I mean, he had his ring back and everything.
Right.
There was something that still pushed me to move forward. And I got my ring back dressed in my white.
Wow.
With my veil on in the limo at the church. His best man brought me back my ring and I put it back on my finger. So it was a strong knowing that, okay, this is my lifetime partner, because if I really wanted to end this relationship, I would not have gone through with all of this because I ended it. I said I ended the relationship, but I knew that this was the man that I was supposed to spend the rest of life with, that God had ordained for me, because there was such a pull in me to continue to move it, even though I had given him back.
Wow. Bishop and Lady D, you guys have both made some excellent points about family and stress and money and those things. But what could you say to our listeners that are going through those difficult family times when it comes stressed, when you have those big challenges that come about, and as people would call it, the drama that comes along with, whether it's money or even just like what we're in the situation now with the COVID-19. Bishop, I watched one of your Morning Manna messages, and you were talking about one of the good things about this episode that we're in right now, with everybody being confined to being at home, is you're spending time with family. So what is some of the advice that you could give to listeners about improving some of their family environments when it comes to those stressful situations? Some of the keys that they could take away with.
I think communication is critical, and learning how to talk, to use an I statement as opposed to you statements, and why statements. Why statements causes people to be defensive. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? As opposed to what were you feeling when you did this or that, which invokes a person's feelings. And we are less defensive about feeling sharing than we are, I'm doing this because I feel attacked. So I think one of the things that is important that families share, and this is a very much an immersed time period, but being immersed, here's the second thing, does not mean that you should lose who you are. And therefore affirming one's differences and affirming what we bring different to the table. And I think that's one of the things that one needs to work through. A third thing that I think that you can work through, even during this challenging time of finances, families are struggling with their finances and all, or job or the lack thereof, is having a vision, a financial vision for the house, because then having a vision for the house then creates cooperation, and then it creates transparency, a vision, a budget. Okay, here is what we are both working toward, as opposed to that whole thing of, you got yours, and then we got something together. No, we everything we have is together.
And then understanding and dealing with and accepting how we feel right now. I may not feel like you feel right now. And if I know how you feel and you know how we feel, which goes back to what Bishop was saying, communicate how do you feel right now, not being able to go out and hang out with your friends or go out and play. How do you feel right now, being in the house, locked up with the whole family all day, every day? Okay, I express how I feel. Well, since I know how you feel, then I can better deal with you. We can better deal with one another when we know how each other feel, and we can talk through it and help one another through these tough times.
I had to recover from your story, Lady D. I had to let my heart settle. And when I think about what you said about, you guys called it off, and you talked about how you guys didn't know each other. If you were talking to a couple who is maybe just getting married, what was one of the things that you did to help you guys get to know each other? And what was what was your favorite thing that you learned about him during that process?
Well, it was really, and being transparent, it was difficult getting to know him. Bishop, at that time when we first got married, he was so very serious. And my personality is one of laughter and fun and that kind of thing. And so getting to know one another was not easy. And then the reason that we separated was because my husband did not know me, and I don't think he really knew my character, my personality like that, and so he felt like he had made a mistake. Those were his words to me. But I would tell a couple that your first 5 years, it may be tough. If you love one another and are committed to the relationship, you can make it work. But the main thing is understanding you're a man and I'm a woman, and that there is major difference in the way we act, the way we respond to things, and the way that we think. There is a total difference between a man and a woman, and when you can accept that and learn each other's differences, then you learn your personalities and grow together, as Bishop said earlier. Start growing together.
So what was your favorite memory, favorite thing that you learned about him that you still treasure to this day?
The fact that this man, and I had heard him preach before, but as his wife, just the knowledge, the wisdom, even as a younger man, he had so much wisdom and knowledge, and always knew that he was going places, and that he was going to accomplish much in his life. That was one thing that, because like I said to you earlier, everything that this man puts his mind to do, or says that this is what we're going to do as a family, this is what I'd like to see happen, it comes to pass. So he is the reason we're where we are now as a family is because of his desire and the goals that he has for this family.
Bishop, one of the last questions I wanted to ask you is kind of piggybacks right into Lady D's last statement about all the responsibilities that you carry, from family and ministry and marriage. And how do you actually balance or prioritize all those responsibilities? Someone who may not even be at the level you're at with a large ministry, but when it comes to balancing out the prioritizing of their family and their friends and also running a ministry, what are some of the things that they can do to set that up for themselves to have as the success that you have?
I think it's two things. I think one, to be where I am currently, it is easy to balance because I have outstanding people around me. There's just no question about it. The staff that I have around me are dedicated to what they believe God is doing through all of us. And principally through me. And so I think that would say that keeps it balanced because I can hand things off. And I generally have a lot going on. I'm not happy unless I do have a lot going on. But prior to staff, prior to all of that, I would say one would balance and oddly enough, I had this conversation with my son earlier today. I would say I schedule my times when I want to do certain things. I schedule, okay, I'm going to schedule that this is what I'm going to do this time, or family, this, that, and the other. And I think schedule and routine. I think successful people are people who are what word am I looking? They are creatures of routine and habit. Mm-hmm. And, that the book I read somewhere, Malcolm Gladwell, one of his books that I read, and he was talking about how, and it's not unique to him, but he was talking about how elite people, whether they are in business, elite whether they're a musician or athlete, have done something 10,000 times. And so I think for me, I then say, okay, I then plan when I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And that helps me to keep everything.
So I want to ask you the same question, Bishop Dudley, that I asked Lady D. What was the thing that you, like you said, you guys didn't know each other. So what was the thing that you learned about her that today you still treasure?
Her spirituality.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. And what's beautiful, and the reason why these kind of conversations are so important is because so many people see where what you've achieved, but they don't know the process you had to go through. So I think sometimes we make it look easy and it's not. Mm-hmm. And like we got married at 21, we were military and, so you have all these different moving parts, but people who are married over 30 years are just like what you're talking about. We see these common denominators. We see these same core values and goals. And so I think that it's so important that we are transparent. And I appreciate you guys being hot. We call it honest, open, and transparent, because this is going to really help a lot of young couples, a lot of people who are in the media or who are in public places to understand what it takes to have a marriage that can last and still be filled with love and life and service to the kingdom of God. And so I'm so grateful for the gift of us all, meeting each other in O'Fallon, Illinois, but being able to share a part of your life that most people don't get to be a part in. And I think that just like when Lady D was talking about hearing you minister, I love to watch you. There's something attractive about seeing a man share the word of God. And that's a blessing and a curse. And so it's learning how to appreciate you, both your differences and what you both bring. And so I'm grateful, just as someone who's watched you all for a lot of years, to be able to see what God is doing through you and in you, and to see the fruit of that through Geoffrey and Mahogany. And we just are grateful to have people like you who can leave a legacy of ministry and service and marriage and make it look easy.
So Bishop, you mentioned your book. So if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you and watch you and find out what you and Lady D are up to, how can they get in touch with the Dudleys?
Well, I am the social media person. First Lady, she really cast out demons on social media.
It's not bad.
I'm with you, Lady D. I'm with you.
You can leverage.
Let me tell you something. I know you asked him the question, but this pandemic has pulled me out. As a matter of fact, this morning I did my first live Facebook.
Yay!
With my women. It was heavy on my heart, and I've been praying and asking God, what do I do to make a difference this time? And he really stretched me, took me out of my comfort zone, and said, get out there.
Praise God.
And minister to these women. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but it was blessing.
Praise God.
And it stretched me. I'm out there.
Well, praise God. We hope that we're glad to hear that, because we need to hear your voice as well.
So Bishop, Lady D, what's your social media contact information if you wanted to provide it before Pastor Bishop Dudley gives his? Your Facebook Live that
you can tell. See, that ain't even her word.
right. Okay, I'll let you talk, Bishop Dudley.
I'll let my husband tell.
Okay.
And we'll definitely put it all in the show notes.
You'll put in the show notes.
Yeah, it's Lady D is on Facebook, and I believe it's Lady D because the staff manages page.
That's okay.
And so, but
we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in the show notes, and my handles as well. I'm on all of the platforms, Twitter and Facebook, and I'm just starting. I'll be launching with iLeadAcademy.net.
Wonderful.
iLeadAcademy.net. My podcast will be housed with classes that'll be in the portal. It will just be so much. My objective to develop leaders that will lead.
So Bishop and Lady D, we thank you guys so much for taking some of your time and investing it in our community, and we really, really appreciate it.
And for being so hot, honest, open, and transparent.
Yeah, I like that thing.
You can borrow it.
Well, thank you all. We really thank you all seeing anything in our lives that benefited by us sharing pieces of ourselves. And to all of your listeners, we thank God for what God is doing in their lives, and they'll stay connected with this awesome podcast.
We really appreciate it. And folks, just remember, we are stronger together.
Let's grow.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your investment in time. Remember to subscribe to the show and hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are posted on the podcast platform that you're listening from.
Or you can always find us on our website at richrelationshipsus.com or our YouTube channel, Rich Relationships with Gil and Renee. If you found this podcast helpful or you think it could help someone that you know and care about, please pass it along and share it with them.
And also, you can always send your questions and comments to richrelationships.us@gmail.com. This is a weekly podcast, and the new episodes are going to be posted on Monday by 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.